Hello, it's Debbie Gilbert from the Business Awards Show, and I'm also the founder of the Best Business Women Awards. And we're going to be in for a treat for the next 30 minutes because my guest today specializes in all things comedy. We'll be having a bit of a laugh, I think. So, welcome to Clara Heimerdinger from Nice N Spiky. She has a background in music production, working for the BBC, and she set up her business 5 years ago. Well, it's nearly 6 years ago, isn't it? 2019. It's nearly 6 years ago. And she's a silver winner for Best Creative Business in the Best Business Women Awards last year. And it was her first award. She dipped her toe into the awards water. And it was delightful to see her get recognised for all her hard work in the comedy industry. So, welcome to Clara.
Thank you for having me. And now I feel like there's pressure to tell a joke, but I didn't bring a joke. So apologies for dead air.
No, well, you work with comedians, don't you, rather than telling the jokes yourself. So,
Indeed, I'm very lucky. I don't have to be, funny at any time.
yeah, no, not at all, not ever. You don't even have to be funny. You could be straight-laced and never tell a joke. So I'm sure you don't because you always seem so bubbly and so full of life. So share with us this journey into because it a quite a niche industry, females working in comedy. So tell us sort of what made you give up this long career at the BBC and do this.
Great question. It is indeed definitely still a male orientated industry. So it's actually quite refreshing to be a female and kind of, working in an industry where you don't meet a lot of other women, especially behind the scenes. I always had comedy as a side hustle, I will say. And I think, honestly, one of the best things I've ever done is convert side hustle into full-time business. And
Hmm.
I'd encourage anyone to just go for it because I think it's the most exciting thing to have a passion. And then, one day that becomes the thing that is, earning you the money. So I dabbled in comedy. So we go back 15 years of kind of a BBC radio career, but all along those 15 years and going back even a little bit before that, I was setting up open mic nights around London, those sort of grotty rooms below or above pubs, which many of us have been to at some point. I was really, really just a massive comedy fan. I was going to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival every summer. I really lived and breathed comedy after 6 o'clock every evening. And I think in a way kind of had that sense of ability to experiment because I had a paid job and that was great and actually really enjoyed the job. There was nothing wrong with working for BBC Radio. It was a really lovely creative place to be and lovely people. But as the years ticked on towards 2018, 2019, that was it for me. I decided that I wanted to be full-time around comedians. And what I sort of done accidentally, happy accident, was built up from the open mic nights. I had built up a client list that was just more interesting and more diverse and sort of better paid. And so it was a no-brainer, if I'm honest, to go, right, I'm not just in the open mic business. I've got comedians who are famous. I've got comedians who love my shows. I've got some private members clubs who are really, have a giant reputation across the UK and Europe, who are booking me to bring them comedians because I know who would fit which audience. So that led me to very end of 2019, and left and haven't looked back.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's quite a leap to give up the security of that salary from the BBC to do this. So people are probably listening thinking, okay, so how are you making your income? You are creating comedy nights and also booking, so like an agency booking acts for different events.
Yeah, that's a really good question actually to explain because there are so many different moving parts to who
Mm.
does what behind the scenes in comedy, and this is quite a niche. It's a little bit like being an agent, but in some ways a bit more freedom. So with agents who work in comedy, they often represent a specific roster that they obviously look after, and some of them have been nurturing that talent for many years. I would say I'm more like an independent booking agent because I can go to any agent in the world and book their talent. So I don't have any single talent assigned to me, which is great because often you could be asked for somebody to present an awards ceremony, or somebody to do a sort of team away day, team building day, or a club for a hotel or a co-working space or private members club. And all those range of clients that I've developed need different types of talent depending on their budget, depending on their space. So I suppose what I mean by where my role comes in is I'm the go-between venues and corporates and comedians, and I get to know all the comedians, all the agents, and if someone's price is right, I'll get them whoever they want, if that makes sense. So that's really fun because, you know, on a Wednesday night you might be dealing with the 4 best newcomers who are about to go really big and get their first recording of BBC Live at the Apollo, but then on the Thursday night you literally might be booking Harry Hill or, you know, Jimmy Carr. It's so diverse and exciting in that respect.
Fantastic. And where did the name come from? I'm intrigued by why you called it Nice and Spiky.
Oh yeah, I always forget that I don't really it's never disclosed anymore. There was a logo many years ago that did have it on. It's because my spirit animal is a hedgehog. And I've decided that hedgehogs are nice and spiky. And a friend drew me a little cartoon of a laughing hedgehog back more towards the open mic nights when Nice and Spiky wasn't a fully formed brand, but it was getting there. And so I went with the name Nice and Spiky, and it stuck. I think it kind of describes, you know, different elements of comedy, although it's a little bit unusual. We do get confused with some curry houses, nice and spicy occasionally.
It's funny.
Obviously, there's always going to be something, but yeah. So that's the main brand, and it's stuck because of the hedgehog vibe. Yeah.
So, what challenges have you come up against? I mean, obviously, the pandemic must have been difficult for you. What sort of other challenges have you come up against over the last 6 years building this brand and this business?
Gosh, so yeah, this is always the interesting part where you try and review it, and all you can think about is so many challenges, but you've got to remember the successes as well. So the pandemic was definitely a crazy time because I had just left the day job. I think maybe 4 months before. But what I did with sort of the team of freelancers that are around me, I have to say, I'm so proud of how we navigated those 18 months to 2 years. Some of it a bit of a happy accident, right place, right time with the right product. Basically, people started calling us in the pandemic and saying, we know it's a bit of a, what's the word, left field idea, but we want comedy online. I mean, literally so similar to this Zoom meeting, you know, that sort of kind of feeling of people on screen, but with audio and not just silent faces. And honestly, by this summer, with lockdown sadly kicking in around the March, all I remember is by the May or June, people were booking us for team lunches, get-togethers, business events. It went really well. Not to say that was a happy time for anybody, but if you're trying to keep a business afloat, it is positive that whilst sadly every comedy club in the land was closed and then opened and then closed again and blah, 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 going into social distancing seating and having to do outdoor shows occasionally, I think the way me and the team around me adapted to Zoom comedy was incredible. Like we were literally at Christmas party season of that 2020, we were having to turn clients away because we couldn't fit in more Zoom comedy shows in one December day, if that makes sense. So that was that era. And yeah, anyone who did pivot online, I think, you know, hopefully did really well. And then after that, what I think it's really been is more about how to maintain still a relatively small business, and it's still very much myself and a couple of sort of, you know, some freelancers here and there with their specialities and specialisms, shall I say. And I think the challenge is really how you can keep motivated, I feel, because it's fun and it's being around entertainment, but it is an events business and it is busy, and it's not just Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. There's a lot of going out in the evenings. There's a lot of getting into bed at about midnight, exhausted, knowing that the next day there's another event. So I feel like the general overall challenges have been, where do you put, like, when you've got pots of money? Like, where do you put them? Do you hire some more people to support you there? Do you try and do more business development? Like, all these strands to kind of literally a solo owned business have been good, but I'd say challenging along the way, because the email inbox is forever full. And also new venues are forever saying, can we do comedy with you? Can we do comedy with you? We've heard about Nice N Spiky. We know you're great at this. And there comes a time where you're like, well, if you take that, you just can only do that with more people. So the scaling question has been interesting. But for now, it's just myself, a couple of part-time PAs, and then 12 different freelancers who do delivery in the evenings. Yeah, so very, very small still.
And you're actually delivering physical events then? You're going and setting
now
up.
that, and if we'd spoken a year ago, yes, more mainly me, but I've been very well advised, shall we say, in the last year, mainly just because everyone around me knows, like, I love to be there. But no, I would say for the last sort of 12 to 18 months, I've drawn a line and I've said a team of my freelancers, well trained, well, like, you know, with all the detail, go and deliver all the live shows. But I obviously need to see a lot of those shows. I can't just be at home watching Inspector Morse or whatever choice of a TV show to get you away from comedy, Miss Marple, or any younger alternatives are available. I think, no, I go to a lot because I think it's so important. Nothing can replace seeing a live show in a room, hearing the laughter, checking what the vibe is of the crowd, how's the client feeling about it. But I mean, last week we had 4 shows on one evening, so I couldn't be at 4 shows. I had to be in one place and trust that the other 3 were going to roll really well. And we did it, and it was great. So one of the biggest challenges / lessons / progress has been just get that team as big as possible. And they have to step in at around 6 p.m. on a weekday evening when there's a show. They're not every night of the week, thank goodness.
And which sort of geographical area are you covering? The whole of the UK or mostly London?
Actually, I would say 90% is probably London and South East. But because clients get to know you, that sometimes creeps out a little bit. So we do also have kind of Sussex, Suffolk, a little bit in Somerset and Oxfordshire, the Cotswolds. So sort of some infrequent ones in the southwest and the southeast, and then a lot in London. But you know, quite diverse parts of London, you know, from Chiswick to Walthamstow, literally kind of east, west, north, south, which is usually why I'm not bombing around in a taxi between the venues, because they're too far and you're just going to miss the headliner while you're in the taxi. So yeah.
So if somebody wants to work with you, a comedian, do you obviously do your due diligence, go and watch them perform first, or get them to perform to you? Or how do you choose these people, who to work with?
So there are so many comedians now.
I know.
Unreal. Welcome to one of my other email inboxes, which is where everyone's applying. I would say, you know what, 99% of the time, there is usually a bit of a buzz in the industry and on the circuit about who you should see next. And that might be because they've come up through one of the new act competitions, or an agent has signed them. Not that it's all about agents. Obviously, you've got some unsigned talent as well. Might be that they've just done a run at a festival and that's been really special. So a lot of it, if I'm honest, is friends that I really know and trust saying, try this person, give them a 5 minutes or give them a 10 minutes. Obviously, later on, the graduation scheme is obviously the best acts. Pro acts are doing 20 minutes paid every night of the week, sometimes multiple gigs a night. But good question about going to see them. I would love to say that I go and try and see everyone live, and I see a lot, but it's just physically impossible. So you can watch videos. There's a lot of good quality of that compared to, say, 10, 15 years ago, where people didn't really record their sets. You know, they'll send you their best 5 minutes. And the other thing that's quite clever is keeping, this is a personal choice and it means a lot more club nights, but whilst I've mentioned delivering for kind of private members clubs, hotels and corporates, I have another layer of clubs just beneath that, where I'm going to try and filter in some new talent or more established acts trying out new jokes.
Yeah. Because I've been to some of those where you know, they're very well established acts. Like Ricky Gervais always goes out to provincial theatres and tests his material first. And Jimmy Carr and Jack D. I've been to all of them,
Amazing.
listened to
Wow,
them,
so good.
listen to their early things, and then once you see it come out on Netflix, you think, oh, actually, you did drop that joke, or you did add something else in. It's quite
So
interesting.
that's one of the biggest beauties of the job. Seeing, we had Paul Chowdhury a couple of weeks ago, who's actually going to go and do the O2, which is just amazing. You know, however many thousands of people, but he chose our venue to go for out to less than 100 people. And I think, yeah, those nights I think are really, really vital. I mean, they're not going to be the primary layer of the business, but I think it's a good, and also, you know, with someone like Paul, maybe the support act that night might be more the up and coming, so then a chance to see what they're like live. So good question though, because talent is a huge part of this. Without the talent, we are not a comedy business. But a lot of people want to be comedians more than I've ever known. It's amazing, but also terrible.
Yeah, it's really interesting because there's still not enough women in comedy. I mean, you will have met Lynn uh,
Yeah,
Parker, who owns Funny Women, it's a CIC, and she won the Most Inspiring Businesswoman last year. For her 20 years, I think she's been
amazing. I know.
championing females in comedy, and she runs her own awards, the Funny Women Awards, because there are awards out there for comedy, as you said earlier. Um, but her thing was that she was saying it's still a disparity between men and women going into comedy. I think it's getting better, but I still don't think it's
It's
not equal, is it?
it's one of those real ongoing challenges. And when I mention all these kind of newer acts, or let's say brand new acts, you know, the ones doing the 5 minutes and treading the boards at these many pub nights, which are just incredibly valuable to the
Mm,
industry. A lot of the time, you know, my industry colleagues do talk about this, because we'll get, if you had, it's kind of scary where that digression is of male female split, where all you'd have to do is look at, say, 100 emails that we got in on a week saying, can I play your night, which is for new talent? And I would honestly average, say, 70 to 80% of those emails are from men. So that's really
mm,
scary. That's still, so what I think we've got some incredible role models that are just getting better and better. So Catherine Ryan, Judy Love, Kerry Godleman, Sarah Pascoe, Ashling B. I mean, there's so many. I'm going to now offend people by just loads. Sarah Millican, like loads,
yeah,
and
American.
working with as many of these as I can, week in, week out. I'm trying where possible to go for, you know, I don't think it's quite as simple as 50% women on a bill, 50% men,
Mhm,
depending on lots of factors, if I'm honest, like
mm.
who's available and who's right for that night. But it's definitely, yeah, it's kind of, it sort of feels progressive in so many ways. And Lynn's Funny Women Awards are amazing and have done so much for, when I think about all the previous winners, some of them I've just mentioned, like Catherine Ryan and Laura Smith won one year and now doing lots of our club nights is amazing all over the telly. But I feel mixed feelings about it. I feel like one side of the industry is doing really well with it, and we're championing women more. And a BBC panel show or a Channel 4 show would never dare just be all
No.
white straight men. However, the proof is in those figures that it's not even it's not percentage wise a high rate that are
Mm.
trying to become comedians, if that makes sense.
Do you think women are more nervous about getting up telling jokes than men? Do you think that's what it is?
Possibly, like you could argue that there's still, whilst possibly a bit of nerves, possibly a bit about, I don't know, that's a really interesting one. I feel like we could do a 1 hour podcast on this, Debbie. I'll have to arrange one with Lynn and you. I feel like maybe, you know what, the other thing might be that the role models that I've mentioned are there, but there's still not nearly as many as the,
Yeah.
like, there's just not that, you know, we could talk about Ricky Gervais, Tom Allen, Jimmy Carr,
Mm,
Ramesh Ranganathan, like till the cows come home, because the list is so long still.
mm.
So I don't know. It's really, it gets debated all the time and still discussed as a representation thing.
Yeah, we lost, I think, two of, for me, the most iconic female comedians, you know, Victoria Wood being one, and Carolina Hearn, although she was more of a, you know,
Yes,
took on roles, you know, rather than doing stand-up, but was a comedic actress and impersonator. And we lost those two women, and I think it's really sad because they were true icons, I think.
icons.
So
I
it's interesting.
totally agree. I
Yeah.
also feel like something that was told to me a lot, which I believe, but I'm like, oh, I wonder how we could change it. And I don't know how, is a lot of women will go through stand up. You mentioned like Caroline Aherne, and she was also well known for obviously going on to be a character
Mm,
actor as Mrs. Merton. And I wonder whether there's something on the scene in general, and this is probably way above me, this is the TV and the film industry, but the really good female stand-ups move very quickly because there's fewer of them. They
mm,
move really quickly more into TV, either presenting,
yeah.
acting, film, and so then we lose. So there's a whole thing about how the circuit is doing well to promote them, but it's very hard to keep them on the circuit because I might be wrong, but it feels like it's about 75% men, 25% women still.
Yeah, I think you're probably not far off those
Generally.
figures. Lynn
Yeah.
would probably know, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think you're far off. I mean, I did one of her little comedy courses, just one day thing, and it was
Right.
really, yeah, no, it was really good. It was more about, when you're doing public speaking and bringing a little bit of humor into it. And it was really good fun, and it's just nice sometimes to do something different. And of course, it was at the Gaucho Club in
Yes, yes.
London, which was lovely. So let's talk about awards, because this is the Business Awards
Ooh.
show. And what sort of motivated you to enter the awards last year? What was your
Oh,
driver?
such a big journey from whatever February to about November, but really wonderful journey. So thank you for having me. I don't remember. Do you know, weirdly, because it's all such a blur and very exciting, I don't remember the early days of it. Just that I think maybe, I'd heard the awards talked about a lot, seen lots of promo. Definitely have probably got some friends or, friends of friends in the general media world who'd kind of done stuff for the awards. And then I think once my heart was set on it, just got so excited and wanted, yeah, I thought best creative business, just lovely title, nice and broad as well. So you don't feel too like, oh gosh, it's going to be all about the entertainment industry. It can be, it can be everyone from photographers to digital people to
Mhm.
comedy promoters. And yeah, so all I remember is February last year. What was it? The floodgates open or whatever the word is. And just worked really hard on this
You're into,
piece of piece of
you're into.
work.
And how did it feel on the night to be recognised for the work that you've done?
Oh, so good. I was almost crying at times, but they were happy tears.
Oh,
Yeah, so winning silver last October, just amazing. And also, I mean, I know you've probably heard this a million times, so sorry if you're bored of hearing it, but just, yeah, being in a room full of women who work really hard, deserve recognition, and had a couple of family members with me, had never really been to that sort of, I mean, obviously I've been on the flip side, the bit that I don't enjoy as much,
mm.
where I'm running around at an awards and one of my comedians is on stage and I'm making sure they don't swear or insult the sponsors. So, that's a very different type of ceremony where you have to just be, yeah, on it. But no, attending as a nominee and then a silver winner was honestly so good, and I was on a high for days afterwards taking photos of my little trophy.
Yeah.
So yeah, just loved it and would honestly recommend to anyone. Just, yeah, it felt a little bit, yeah, like a thing I wish I discovered earlier, but I feel like it came at the
Mm.
right time. I needed to
Yeah.
get the pandemic and the new
Yeah.
business out the way, and then right, ready to apply.
And was it your mum that you brought with you?
Oh yes, she was there. Yes, yes. How do you
Oh, that's
remember
so
that?
nice. I just do because I suppose
Oh,
because I've lost my mum, which
oh,
yeah, I lost my mum a few years ago, and she unfortunately she had multiple sclerosis. So when I sort of won my awards, I wasn't ever able to take her because
oh,
she was very poorly for a long time before she died. And I always think it's so lovely when people bring their
yeah.
mum.
That
And
was
my
so.
mum would have loved it. She would have absolutely loved
And
it.
actually, maybe for various, different reasons, whether it be health or geographical, it might be, I mean, quote me if I'm wrong, but maybe I am one of the fewer people that attend with kind of, the next generation, so to speak, or the elder generation. Yeah, she all the way down from North Yorkshire for that event. So
It's amazing. I hadn't realised that she travelled
oh
so
gosh.
far.
Oh yeah, we put it. It was very like, yeah. Once I knew that I would be attending the grand final, we booked it, and that was. I think that's why I was so emotional, bringing her all the way to somewhere south.
I love that. I really love that, because I know one of our other winners, she had her mum with her because she introduced me to her. And I think there was someone else there with their mum. And I think it is so lovely, because, we are a product of our environment, aren't we, at the end of the day? And the support that
Yeah,
they've given you, they play a role in that success, really. Um,
definitely.
so let's sort of finish up by offering words of wisdom and advice. And I think we could talk about that from the perspective of the side hustle transitioning into a business,
Mhm.
because there are a lot of women that do that, and men, because we do have men that listen to our podcast too. So there are a lot of people that do this. They kind of almost run their side hustle as long as they possibly can, and then transition. So, what was that like for you? And at what point did you go, right, I've got to make this leap?
Yeah. Gosh, it's all a bit hazy. I feel like okay, let me try and think of a couple of moments. I think on one or two occasions, I was running to work, but carrying some equipment for a comedy night. And there's like navigating the London bus system. And I vaguely, or quite clearly, should we say, trying to block it out was horrific. I think it was too much. And I think my brain was saying to itself, Clara, like you either go one or the other now, which was very different, say, from 10 years or 5 years previous to 2019, when there was still work to be done on the comedy in the evenings, but it just wasn't, it was going well, but it wasn't like going wild, if you know what I mean. So I think what's really interesting is definitely having a stable client base that have come back to me by 2019 for several years, and really quite a lot, at least 5 years of repeat custom. And so knowing that, okay, this is quite serious about comedy, shall we say. So, we're not a room below a pub where nobody gets paid. We're doing it for the giggles. I won't say the swear word that goes with that. and so yeah, probably that it was very, very hard on one's head to be one person that had a day job, that also had to think about the evenings and carry stuff. And also it's just really tiring as well, isn't it? Like
Exhausting.
it's exhausting because you're running your two lives. And so yeah, I think maybe not one single epiphany moment. I will say my managers at BBC Radio were amazing, and I'm still friends with them now. And I feel like it was so great to get their support. Like there was never any point where they sort of said, don't you dare leave us, or, what are you doing? It was almost like, well, Clara is creative and loves radio and music, but she also just has this burning desire to be working with comedy and producing. So getting their encouragement was good. Although I wouldn't say that's the be all and end all, right? Because I'm sure a lot of corporate environments want to keep people, so they're not going to encourage you to set sail. But yeah, probably just when it becomes unmanageable, and then you think, well, what have I got to lose? What I think the worst case scenario would have been, I could have maybe reapplied to be in the broadcasting or radio world again, like a year or two later. So it wasn't like there was absolutely no backup plan, if that makes sense.
You knew the door was slightly ajar and you could go back to it if you wanted to.
I think if your CV is really good and you've worked hard at that place, and your reviews, your appraisals are good, then yeah. So yeah, good luck to anyone making the leap, because it's definitely life-changing but really exciting.
So have you had to learn how to run this as a proper business? Has that been or did you go off and get a business coach, or get a course, or have you just learned as you've gone along?
Exactly. Learning, honestly, still learning literally every single day. My goodness, when does it ever stop? Self-teaching a bit of it, hiring people around me, like an accountant, social media person, and then some of it just going, no, I haven't got the money for those outsourced bits, so doing it myself, but trying, going out and then bringing that back in-house. Yeah, I personally haven't lent towards any formal training or a business degree, but I kind of quite like that. It feels very adventurous.
Yeah, it does.
And a few little mistakes along the way, but there's not a single business owner that I know that hasn't made one. So we learn from those as well.
Anyone who says they've never made mistakes is lying.
Exactly.
So Shall we finish off with anything you've got coming up that you want to share over the next few months? Have you got any events that would be interesting
Yeah,
to our listeners?
so what I've been doing, I need to set up, well, let me try and think. I guess there'll be links in this episode. I've been publishing like links of all our gigs across London, and there are multiple gigs. I mean, literally, you could take your pick from different ones every week, and you could be in the heart of Soho, or like I say, you could be out in kind of South London or North or East or West. So there's those, and then the other thing that I'm working lots with, which is really exciting for team building or away days, or even, I know we're a bit early for Christmas parties, but we won't be too early soon.
People can get booked in, can't they?
Exactly. We're getting, lots more work with anyone who needs a comedian or a host or a workshop facilitator for anything to do with comedy in the office. So, livening up the team or teaching them confidence with comedic skills, or hosts and stuff like that. So I'll put the links in the episode, as they say.
We will. So thank you for joining me today, Clara, and giving us an insight into your world, because it's still your industry, even as a promoter, is still very much male dominated as well. So I think all power to you. Love the name of the business. Now I know where it came from the love of hedgehogs. It's brilliant. And I'll tell you, let you into a secret, actually. Denise O'Leary, who's one of our judges, is really into hedgehogs.
Well, there we are. Look,
as well.
Let's do that.
Wow.
There we go.
And when she got her MBE, I got a picture painted for her of a hedgehog wearing an MBE.
No way. Oh my goodness. Right. So I need a chat with Denise. You see,
she loves it. She's really into her hoggies.
What I love is there's usually, in every community, there's usually one or maybe two people who love hedgehogs, but we're quite little, we're niche, and there's not that many of us. So I'm glad you've mentioned another one in Best Business Women Awards.
Yes, definitely. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see you again at the Best Business Women Awards, winning another award. But also, I'm going to keep an eye on what you're doing, because I think you're going to go far with this.
Come to a show. We'll get you a seat in the back row so you don't get on.
Oh yeah, no, that has happened to me.
Yes,
never sit in the front row of a comedy.
It has to be the back, especially as my VIP guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Clara. I wish you well. Thank you.
Bye.